So what's going to happen from now on? So Professor Walter Meyerowitz, Bolsonaro brothers, you are doing another disservice to Brazil. Walter Meyerowitz. He's a jurist, right? A former judge who is now a commentator for UOL, who wrote this article saying that once again they are harming Brazil. Because the first time it was with the tariffs, with all those things, and now with the economic consequences that will come and will affect you who are watching me. And you will know, you will understand as we go on here and unravel the reasoning, and we'll get there. Walter Meyerowitz says the following. Look, he says exactly that nothing will happen, nothing from the public security point of view, but from the economic point of view, a lot will happen, right? Lincoln GAKIYA is a prosecutor from the São Paulo Public Prosecutor's Office who has been fighting the PCC for decades. He is the top expert in Brazil on fighting organized crime. He's a man who's been marked for death, who moves around with a huge security detail because of his fight against the PCC. And this guy gave several interviews today. He was called a lot, in high demand to give interviews and comment on this. And he said, this is serious. Look, classifying the PCC and Comando Vermelho as terrorist organizations is extremely serious for Brazil, with consequences that go far beyond police investigations, says GAKIYA. And he even explains that our own fight against crime is harmed by this. So not only does it not help, it actually makes things worse. This is Lincoln GAKIYA, a prosecutor from the São Paulo Public Prosecutor's Office, a very important figure in the fight against organized crime in Brazil. He is probably the most threatened public authority, the one who has received the most death threats, the most at risk in the entire public structure of Brazil. It's this guy right here, right? And look, the decision by the United States to classify the Primeiro Comando da Capital and Comando Vermelho as terrorist organizations could have serious consequences for Brazil, far beyond police investigations. For prosecutor Lincoln GAKIYA, an expert in organized crime, the country now faces the risk of economic sanctions on the financial system, restrictions on information exchange with American authorities, and even secret CIA operations. Secret CIA operations here on Brazilian territory, the American government's foreign intelligence service operating within our national territory. That's it. So it starts there because he explains more below. We need to see how broad the United States will make this classification. It's extremely serious and causes economic effects for people, groups, and financial institutions that in some way have transactions with the United States. That is, basically anyone with a bank account, everyone, right? If you buy dollars, if you sell dollars, if you have transactions with the American market, with American banks, everyone is now suspected of collaborating with terrorism from now on. Everyone. So the United States can simply say, this bank here is harming an American company. I'm going to harm them. I'll say they have terrorists there, that they help terrorists, and then I'll sanction this bank. He can do that whenever he wants. And Donald Trump, you know, right? He does things and nobody knows where he gets them from. He does things, a paradigmatic view of the investigation. When the State Department classifies these organizations as terrorists, this issue moves out of the realm of policing and receives a stricter national defense treatment. The ones in charge of national defense are the CIA and the armed forces. So here's the thing, my friend. Today, the ones investigating organized crime, the ones investigating the PCC in partnership with Brazil, because there are bilateral agreements, this partnership is carried out by the Brazilian Federal Police and the Public Prosecutor's Office together with the FBI and with the DEA, which is the American Drug Enforcement Administration. These two agencies over there work in partnership with the two agencies here in Brazil, right? With the classification as a terrorist organization. This collaboration ends because it leaves the jurisdiction of the FBI and the DEA and goes to the armed forces and the CIA, the American Intelligence Service. And then there could very well be American secret agents here on Brazilian territory carrying out secret missions, major espionage operations within Brazilian territory without Brazilians knowing why, because American law authorizes Americans to do this. But are they going to invade Brazil? Yes, if they don't get caught, it goes unnoticed. Today, this doesn't happen. Today, the United States itself, American authorities themselves, are not authorized by their own law to enter another country to do this. However, with this type of classification, they can. That's why they carried out, for example, that operation in Venezuela where they kidnapped Nicolas Maduro. That's why they kept carrying out those operations on the Caribbean coast, there on the Venezuelan coast, shooting at boats, and on the Colombian coast as well, shooting and blowing up boats they thought were traffickers' boats. All they had to do was spot a boat sailing at night and they'd drop a bomb on it. So that request from Flavio Bolsonaro, you might remember he asked for bombing for an aircraft carrier in Guanabara Bay, could happen now because of this decision by the United States. And does Brazil have the ability to face the United States militarily, to be able to say, no, you're not coming here? No, it doesn't. The worst case is the spy gets caught here and arrested, right? That would cause a major diplomatic issue between Brazil and the United States. But this classification allows for that. It makes investigating the crime harder. Instead of making it easier, it makes it harder, and it transfers the authority to another country to come and meddle in our problems. That's what this decision does. So Flavio Bolsonaro went to ask the United States to interfere in Brazil. He went there to do that, and it was all arranged. The announcement was made the next day on purpose to really give the impression that it was Flavio who made it happen. The United States were going to make that classification anyway. They've been studying this for years now. They've already come here to Brazil. They've even talked to Lincoln GAKIYA, this prosecutor here. And he told the guys from the United States not to do this because it would harm the fight against organized crime. And it wouldn't help, it would make things worse. And he heard this from the American who came here. We're not interested in your opinion. We just came to gather information. They were going to do it anyway. But they timed it to coincide with Flavio Bolsonaro's trip to convey to the general public, especially to Bolsonaro supporters, the idea that Flavio went there and made it happen. In other words, Flavio went there, traitor to the country as always, right? And did what he did. Look, there's more super chat here. Ricardo, it annoys me even more that we still pay Flavio Bolsonaro to go to the US and seek sanctions against Brazil. That's it, Mildo. You're absolutely right. You're telling it like it is. You really are. Right? And that's it. Rosana Zaredo, in my ignorance here, I wanted to know how two fools go to the White House, say whatever they want, and it all sounds like the truth. Is it that simple? No. It's because in the White House, there are also fools who are allies of those fools. Marco Rubio, who is the US Secretary of State, is an ideological fanatic. Crazy. You get it? Ideological fanatic, an extreme right-wing fanatic like that, and he's the one who creates this kind of situation. Maria Zinha, Bolsonarism only brought losses to Brazil, right? And that's all it did. Up until now, only losses. Financial ones too. Because there are entire industrial supply chains that are screwed because of the tariffs they managed to get the American government to impose. This Sunday, the 31st, there's a free class for you who want to learn how to invest, especially if you're over 50, for you who don't know, for you who think it's not possible to build wealth. Yes, you can build it. A free class from Eduardo Moreira about how to build wealth after 50. Take a look at this message here. I'll be right back.
I recently turned 50 years old. On February 11th, hey everyone, I wanted to really thank you for all the birthday messages. This milestone really moved me. It gives you a bit of that feeling of, wow, how am I going to make the most of this second half of life? Funny, right? Second half, as if we were going to live forever. The expectation is that we live a little less, but maybe it really is the second half, because we start to take control of our own path and understand life, not on the day we're born, but when we're a little older. So yes, it's the second half. And one of the things that inevitably came up was like a concern. It's about how I was going to start taking care of my financial situation from now on, so I can have a good second half, maybe even still accumulating a little bit of wealth, so that later I can just enjoy, right? Enjoy that moment, which I think everyone should enjoy in that last third of life. And I decided to share all these thoughts with you. In a class that I'm going to call How to Build Wealth After 50, you'll be able to understand how I organize my finances. and how I make sure that this financial balance is maintained throughout the different cities I travel to. It's free to participate, and you're going to learn a lot from what I'm going to teach. Thank you.